Oh, good. Everything figured out.
I'm going to turn the mouse on. Oh my God. Oh my word. Did you know? Word, are you right? I did. So you can't see it. You can't see it. Pull to the left. So it's on. And so I'm going to grab it and pull to the right.
Okay, I want to just say to him,
Nope, just make sure you don't jack my cord up. There you go.
I don't want to be away.
You want, yeah, we're only going to but that is, you're not going to walk that way. So I try to walk on my way.
Okay, I want to be.
If you're going to stand and hold.
It sucks.
I'm saying.
Try to eat that. Stand it outside and talk this way.
Okay, so I have my next student out. Mike has a house and wants to put an offer on finance. You're teaching me right now. Oh, yeah. How do I put this offer on the house that I know is working? We can move forward.
Okay. Yeah, well, all the men on that side, we figured we'd, oh, I guess there's one woman. So, this lady accepted this particular offer.
Oh, yeah?
And, well, we went back and forth a few times. So, yeah, now we are.
Everybody's
Yeah.
Who's
not, but, you know, whatever.
the seller, the buyer.
Because if you said, she would come down. Just,
Yeah.
it's $2,000.
Yeah. Right.
You know?
And the big scope.
I know, exactly.
Yeah.
But she, so now they want inspection.
Oh, home inspection.
So they'll figure out tomorrow.
Oh,
No.
yeah.
And they wanted to close tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
And so, but since everything kind of got pushed a few days because of the big holiday weekend,
Oh, yeah.
we're just gonna do it next week, but, yeah, so they found somebody else. Yeah, so then it's back to what they do. So I told the
Just getting utilities.
The only people that stay here are the first two chairs here, no one else.
No, what I'm saying is, I was sitting and I could see myself on the street. Well, then just be one.
Oh, let me move
That's a long
that.
way, so-
Let me move that chair so that nobody sits there.
Nice.
Okay, guys. Yeah, I really, seriously, tomorrow.
Do you want us to move it? We can move. We can move.
Well, you can stay over here. I'm just trying to get
Yeah.
Clear out there.
So you want you, this is it.
Just up here or something. He just says, yeah, I want you to clear out that way. If you go too far over, you're gonna be in the front of the camera.
You can see on her screen if you're worried.
Bring your sign down. I put it right here. For some reason.
Hey there. Hey, gang. Thanks for coming. I hope we do something that helps everybody in here just a little bit, or a lot, one way or the other. So, first on my Hicks. That is, quick check, if your phones are not in at least stun mode, could you please put them in stun mode? So we don't hear the ringy dingy. Because usually we do this, everybody thinks, oh, it's already in stun mode, then later on we find out it's really not. So today we're going to learn about HUD properties, and some about the process. I like it to be interactive, so as we have questions, please ask. It gets really boring if I'm the only one talking. So every now and then I'll even ask a question or two as well, okay? So there is a sign in register over there. Everybody sign in? Yeah? Not yet? Okay, we can get that passed around as well. So, okay, so first thing, I know some of you know about this stuff and some of you don't. So the first thing I want to ask you is, what is a HUD owned property? How does a property become a HUD owned property? Anybody know? How does it become a HUD owned property? They're very sensitive, by the way. We don't call them HUD foreclosures. We call them HUD owned properties. Like Smith owned properties, HUD owned properties. So how does something become a HUD owned property?
So when it was the loan that was taken out on the home originally.
Yeah. What kind of loan?
It was probably an FHA. It's a government-backed
Probably,
loan.
definitely, 100% for sure, an FHA loan. That's true. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So if it was conventional financing or VA financing or something like that,
Going to auction.
we would go into a different route. So if it's an FHA loan gone bad, then it becomes a HUD-owned property when it gets foreclosed upon. Okay.
Oh, so that's the HUD foreclosed property.
It becomes HUD forecloses and it becomes HUD-owned. Shut. Okay. So so that's how it becomes a HUD-owned property. So how many of you have sold a HUD-owned property? Has it been a while? Fairly recently? Was it easy or was it hard? Or was it neither?
Once you get it going, it's easy.
Does it have peeling paint? Is really
There are things to learn about the HUD-owned properties. The thing about to remember the HUD-owned properties is it's really like any other bank-owned property. For the most part, you purchase them as is. For the most part, you have no historical data about the property. You're buying the property from an entity that's never lived in the property. They don't have a lot of knowledge about the property. So that's always something first and foremost to understand. So there's a new management company. We used to have a company called BLB. And so you used to go into the website called blbresources.com, and it just kind of got in our heads. Now the new management company is called MMREM, Matt Martin Real Estate Management, MMREM. The website, of course, is now different, so I just wanted to show you because a lot of folks may not be able to remember much more than those initials. So just when you're looking for the website, just Google MMREM. So that'll bring you up to the, where are we? It didn't work.
So is this MMREM
There was too many R's.
Oh,
Yeah, just click on the 15.
Is they local or are they national?
National.
They're national. They're back east. I'll tell you that MMREM, we're finding that they're actually, they're very good to work with. They're less strident, I would say, about the policies and procedures they do enforce, but they aren't quite as particular. So that's really helpful.
BLB? They're not as picky as BLB?
Correct. So when we Google MMREM, come down here, stands for Matt Martin Real Estate. So just click on Matt Martin Real Estate, and it will bring you up to the website. And so here's where you can pick up, if you recall with BLB, if you needed a form to change the agreement, change terms, to do different things, this has their programs. So click on here, it brings up all your forms. So you can go to the different types of forms. Are we looking for HUD sales? Are you looking for releases? Are you looking for, you need to get, if you're a broker, do you need an NAID number or anything like that? So you can go here to MMREM. This is where you'll find the forms. And each one of these that you click on, for example, the HUD sales, then it has the series of forms in here. So again, if you're looking for a form that has to do with the HUD property, or you wonder, is there a form? You can go here to the forms under the MMREM website and take a look at these. So if you're looking for a contract, you're looking for any of these things, they're all, their owner certifications, all these forms are all here. Okay? Close that. Close that. HUDHomestore.com. You guys know about HUDHomestore.com? Yeah? Has everybody been to HUDHomestore.com? Anybody? Okay. So this is where HUD posts all the properties. In this area right here, this is where you can post to do searches. So you can search anywhere you want to search. Anywhere you want to go, you can search there. If you want to look for what's in Bingham County, Jefferson County, Madison County, Utah, wherever, you can do the searches on those areas. So in Bonneville County right now today, we've got 5 properties that are currently on the market. So I'm just trying to help you guys know where to go if you're looking, or you have somebody who's devoted to trying to buy foreclosure properties and HUD properties that they are interested in looking at. This is the place that you can go.
What did you call that again?
HUDHomestore.com.
HUDHomestore.com?
Right here.
HUDHomestore.com. HOMESTORE, HUD Homestore. I'm going to go ahead and get that in our website.
Yep.
I'll get back to you. I'm going to go back to Matt Martin in a minute. So anyway, if you were trying to track the HUD properties, you're wondering, is there anything new? Is there a price change? Is, you know, what's going on with the property? Then that's where you go, HUD Homestore, and you can monitor that. There is an app that you can put on your phone. So you can just, whether you're using an iPhone or otherwise, you can just go into the app, the particular app store, do a search for HUD Homestore. It'll bring you up an app, and you can have it on your phone. You can check it on your phone, and it's really very fast, very convenient, and shows an awful lot of the information that's shown on this side as well. Does anybody ever use the app?
Yeah.
What's the name of the mic?
It's just HUD Homestore. So, if you go into the app, go into your apps.
Where were you?
I'm sorry. So you just go in there, you just search for a HUD Homestore app. It'll come up, and you download it. It's free download. So, back to our MMREM website. We can also search for properties here. This is a different part of the website.
Corporate side.
Oh, go back. It's that arrow.
Yeah.
Sorry, I wouldn't do that.
Sorry, guys. Just trying to back up. Thinking. Okay. Here we go. So guys, when you go in, this is the link. Just look for the map market real estate itself. I'll take you to the regular site.
So it looks like CMMR backslash HUD.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's right on.
Okay, so this also, if you're looking for information, one of the nice things about the website, underneath the training, they do have training supplements, so they do have a slideshow, a series of things here that you can go to in their training. Broker's Guide to Selling HUD Homes, how to buy a HUD home. So it'll take you through a couple of these so that you need updated with some of the recent changes that HUD has had. They aren't 100% accurate, they're pretty close, but they give you an idea of the flow. So it's really, it's just a slideshow and a picture of it. If you ever want to do any of this training yourself, you can go to
Just as an aside, because you are we are. So we not?
Yeah, we're going to cover who can and who can't buy. Who can buy. So this is the broker's guide to purchasing. So it real quickly talks about how to buy. You have to expect it just goes through page by page. So it's a good informational tool for you. We won't spend time dwelling on it here today because I know what you want to know is mechanically how do you do it and what are some of the common issues and things that you need to be aware of to advise your buyer, to have them prepared for the process. As I always say, it's not what people hear, it's when they hear it that makes all the difference. So the more they know up front, the better it is, just like for you. But if you want to learn a little bit more about this, beyond what we're doing today, so you can go to this area and get a lot of information for yourself. So again, you've got these different topics: closing procedures, the first look overview, and what they call the first look period. And we're going to show this on the HUD Home Store page. But when a HUD property comes on the market, normally it's only available to who? Who would be able to buy it first?
Homeowner. Homeowner.
Owner occupants, right? Sometimes it comes out on what we call lottery, which we had help deliver lottery. They aren't currently. So, but this will take you. So, if you want to spend even just 10 or 15 minutes just looking at these on your own, you'll find a fair amount of information here to remind you what did we talk about in the meeting. Yeah?
When it's open just to the nonprofits, who's that buyer? Who is that buyer? I'm trying to figure out.
It says nonprofit and nonprofit and government organizations. So, for instance, locally, Habitat for Humanity. We know Habitat for Humanity is a nonprofit, right? But interestingly, Habitat for Humanity is not a registered nonprofit with HUD. So they have to be a registered nonprofit with HUD in order to bid during this period. In our local area, in fact, in the state of Idaho, not a single Habitat for Humanity is actually a HUD recognized nonprofit organization. They have to go through the process to verify, are you really nonprofit or not? So there's an application that has to be completed for folks to be there. There are no HUD registered nonprofits in southern Idaho, straight across from Boise to Idaho Falls, not a single one. I found that out. But governmental agencies from out of state could. So a Habitat for Humanity in Utah, for example, could buy one of these properties during that period of time. So let's go here. So just understand that. So remember, Google MMREM. That'll take you to the regular website. There's training materials there, that information. All your forms are there. There's Q&A there. There's just a bunch of information that you can go to, just sit down and sift, and it's pretty easy to look for. It's very straightforward, simple drop-down menu. So here's our properties that are currently on the market in Bonneville County. So this is their case number, and pretty much every document will refer to the case number. This is how HUD tracks the properties. Your address, how much it's currently listed for. So this was the new listing. You look right here, you can see the price has gone down. They've reduced the price from the original listing price. The bedroom and bathroom, this is the above ground bedroom and bathroom. It does not include the basement. You have to understand this is, HUD of course is national, right? Most parts of the country don't have basements, livable space that are basements, so we're unusual in that regard.
So how do you account for the basements? I mean, if they're finished and stuff, you just don't?
On the HUD side, they don't. In multiple listing, we do. And we had to get an exception to do that. That was actually a pretty interesting process. Tells you the listing period. So when it says exclusive like that, that's in the initial period. If it says lottery, then when it's lottery, it's for nonprofits and governmental agencies when it's lottery. So it's not open to the general public yet. This is the date that they're going to open up offers. So this property just came on the market. You have a buyer who runs over and looks at it today, and by the way, this is a great little house. Barrel ceilings, it's a nice property, and in good condition. They will take bids until June 2nd. On the morning of June 3rd, they'll open up all offers, all bids on the property, and they'll take the highest and best. So up until that time, so if you were writing up an offer today for a buyer on this property and telling them, we'll hear back tomorrow, you won't hear back tomorrow. You won't hear back on this one until June 3rd. If your buyer did not get the bid, you won't hear anything. So you need to call and find out what happened. If you don't get a call at all and you look at HUD Home Store and it's gone, you know somebody got it. You can call us and find out who got it. By the way, this is Nicole.
Okay.
One of the great things about HUD Properties is that you get to work with Nicole when you work with me. And that makes the process a pleasure. Seriously, she's very helpful. Any questions you get during the process, Nicole can handle 90% of them, and the other 10% I place a phone call and ask for the answer.
So that date is the last date you can put a bid in?
No, that's the date. That is the last bid. That's the bid opening date, what they call it. So they're going to accept offers until June 2nd. So this one below it, notice it says extended, and then it says bid open date, the 30th, and the rest of these all say that. That means every day. Now, if somebody puts in an offer on this one today, if the offer was accepted tomorrow, it will be accepted. So it lets you know that that's the bid opening date.
Well, that bid open date's not the date you can start sending bids in. That's when they open the bids.
Yeah. Now, there used to be a thing, I may be getting to this, there used to be a thing that timing made all the difference. So with HUD, it used to be, if at 10 o'clock today, you submitted an offer that met the minimum bid that they're willing to accept, and at 2 o'clock, another offer was submitted that was for even more money, the first offer would be accepted, and the second offer, even though it was more money, would not really even be open. They wouldn't even consider that offer. Those days are gone. They become like everybody else. They'll open up in the morning. They open up all the bids. They take the highest bid, the highest offer, highest and best each and every time. So,
But on the days after that, if one comes in the morning and one comes in the afternoon, do they have already processed the morning bids, or do they wait till?
They open them up. They're back east. So usually we hear the earliest about 11 o'clock in the morning is about the earliest time we hear on one. We did hear on one, I think it was Tuesday, that I actually got notified at about 7:30 in the morning. Which meant they were up at 5:30 back there opening up the offers. But let me get back to this.
Morning after the bid
After the
is
bid,
expired.
each day. So if today, on this property, 3 offers went in, one at 10 o'clock, one at noon, and one at 12. they're going to take the highest and best of those three offers. It used to be 10 o'clock could have been the lowest of the three bids, but it still met the minimum. That buyer was going to get the property.
So
That's not true anymore.
their cutoff date is 12 o'clock to midnight
11:59
for that day.
for that day,
Eastern.
Eastern time.
So they gather all the bids during, this is after the bid is open, and it doesn't sell. So they wait till 12 o'clock at night to check all the bids for that day.
So today's the 29th. This says bid opening date 5:30. So in the morning, sometime before noon, our time, they're going to open up all the offers on that property. And the highest and best offer is the one that they would accept if it met the minimum bid. Okay.
And we go to the MMREM to fill out all the forms that we need to send.
We're going to go there. We're going to go there. We will go there here in just a minute, okay?
At what point can an investor go in there after it's exclusive, it goes to extended, and then it opens up to investors?
So let's look at this one. So this is the first one. So all I did was click on the property. We've got some bid information on this first page. It has the case number, the bid submission deadline. So it tells you here, they're taking bids until 11:59 on June 1st, right? So this bid is open for another 3 days, 9 hours, and 32 minutes. They can tell you. It's like a big countdown to launch now. So this one also tells you who can make bids on the property. Eligible bidders, owner occupants, nonprofits, and governmental agencies only. If this property had been a lottery property, on that first page, it said lottery in this field, then it would just say nonprofits and government agencies only. That's it. And that, you know, that it's not open to bid. So right now, if you have an investor, if you wanted to submit an offer on this, so if you came in here and it said submit an offer, and you're going through the process, it won't even let an investor make an offer. It doesn't even give you the opportunity to do it for an investor to buyer. It's a preventive system.
And when does that open up to investors then?
After 15 days. It used to be 30 days, now it's 15 days.
From that opening date.
15 days from the list date. So this property was listed, that's the appraisal date. Here's your listing date of the 21st. So 15 days after that, it'll open up to investors.
But this one, if you have a buyer and they want to live there, you can bid on these homes anytime, right? Because unless it's a lottery.
Unless it's lottery, correct.
Because this is over.
That's correct. Everybody hear that question? So if it's open to all bidders, so let's look at that. So let's look at.
Do you want to look at Fifth Street? Because I have a question. I have a owner occupier who wants to put an offer on your Fifth Street property. That's why I'm here in the class, because it opens up tomorrow to all bidding, but there's so much peeling paint. I really need to get a clear understanding of what I should.
Okay. So here's an example of one that says all bidders. Everybody can bid. This is when, and so if you're watching, if you can't remember the 15 days, call us and ask us. But if you're watching and you're talking to your buyer and you've got the buyer monitoring HUD Home Store, which is good, let your buyer live there. They can get the information they want, right? They can go here and you can let them know if they're an investor. When that changes to all bidders, we can make our offer. That's when investors can now join the fray. 16th day is when that happens.
Do the owner occupied still get preference during all bidders?
They do. Did you hear that? Owner occupants always get preference.
That's an owner occupant, person who's actually living there now,
Person
or somebody who intends to move in.
they intend to move in. Houses will all be vacant. They don't come on the market until they're vacant. Okay, so what they're doing is they're buying it as their primary residence. That's the owner occupier. And they sign certifications to that end, okay?
So when you say the preference is given to an owner occupier, even when it's all bidders, an owner occupier will bid on this, I don't know what the, but let's just say it was a $80,000. I don't see why I said that. And my investor quoted 85. Will they still now give preference
If the
to?
owner occupant met the minimum accepted bid, they'd sell it to the owner occupant.
Even, okay.
If it did not, then they're going to sell it to the investor. The key is the minimum bid. So what you have to understand is with these properties, HUD has told MMREM, this is the minimum offer we'll accept. Anything above that, within these guidelines, owner occupant, accept the highest and best.
So the amount listed on that list is the minimum. On
No.
that previous page, where do we see the minimum?
You don't.
You don't get to see the
We
minimum.
don't get to know.
You don't get to see it.
Okay.
Now, in the old days, BLB, every 30 days, changed the price of the properties 10%. You can set your calendar on it. These guys haven't. We've actually only had 3 properties, I think, that have price changes. We're finding that they're not doing that. There's no regularity to it. We do updates to the VPOs. I'm not sure of the full process that they're taking, but it is different. So there's no scheduled price changes. So don't tell your buyers they change the prices every 30 days. That's no longer true. They do not do that. They give us no warning. We have no idea when it's going to happen. We know that we submitted updated VPOs to them, but we have no idea when they may make a change. Yes.
Can we get clarification on the owner occupancy versus investor? If the owner occupancy bid meets the minimum requirement, and the investors meet the minimum requirement, but it's $5,000 more, that will still go to the owner occupant,
That's correct.
even if there's $5,000 pledged.
That's correct.
So it's not highest and best use at that time. Minimum is met, it gets
Owner
preference.
occupant.
So the owner occupant actually gets priority.
Owner occupants ranks, strong preference in the system.
That's the purpose of the HUD.
And that carries all the way through the process, by the way. The owner occupant is given there are limitations to the preference, but the owner occupant gets them above all the others. Okay. Any other questions here?
So let's just say this house is, I don't know what it is, but say it was at 70,000 on the pricing.
Right there's the price.
Expected 100,000, okay. That's not their minimum though.
No.
So, my buyer, we could say, well, let's just put 80 and see if it'll go.
It won't. Just so you know it won't.
So.
But you can.
But you can.
Well, fine, yeah.
And
So
here's what
what's
you
their
have.
criteria for that then?
That's between HUD and MMREM. They've set a minimum standard. Now that minimum that they accept will vary depending on the listing price. Okay. So today, the minimum on that house might be $95,000 and paying 3% closing costs. If they reduce the price on that to $90,000, the new minimum might be $86,000 and 3% closing costs. Who knows? And they might have, in the meantime, gotten an offer for more of that, but they rejected it because the minimum acceptable bid was at a higher price. They're like any other seller, right? I mean, if you think about it, they're like any other seller. Today I have my house listed for $100,000. It's been on the market a week. I get an offer for $95,000. I say, nah, I'm not going to do that. 98 is my number. Buyer says, well, see you later. Later on, I reduce my price to $95,000 and accept an offer for $91,000.
They
I
don't
walked away from a higher offer.
They don't say these offers in on something. So how long is your offer valid with them?
Just
a day.
Just a day.
And then could you, if you make one today and nothing happens with it, you can make one tomorrow?
That's
You
correct.
can just keep making them until you maybe hit their price?
Yes, that's
correct.
But it's, how many pieces of paper do you have to do to make an
Well, it's
offer?
online, your offers are online,
And we'll show you that process.
yeah. It's
So I
paperless
know
at the
there's
beginning.
the
I
box
know,
you can
but it
check
still
that
takes
says hold
work,
as backup offer.
That's what I mean.
So what is that?
If, and we're going to come to this when you do an offer, will you allow your offer to be held as a backup offer? If you check that box as yes, and the first offer falls apart, comes undone, then they're going to come to you and say, hey, you were just awarded the bid. Do you still want it? At that point in time, you can say no, and you don't have to take it. Because at that point in time, you said that you'd accept that, but we don't have earnest money. So earnest money has to be collected and everything. So you're given a chance to say yes.
So does that work if they reduce the price as well? Like if you didn't meet the minimum and then they reduce the
You
price,
just,
now
you
you
just
just,
say, no, I don't want it, and then submit another bid.
but would they hold that same?
They're not going, they won't change, they've got a bid in place that they've accepted. You have to understand it's off the market, the price isn't changing.
They only hold the backup offer if there's an accepted bid.
Right, that's correct.
If nobody got it, you
Nobody got
start
it.
all over.
The other part of the bid process here is that there really are no counteroffers. I will tell you though, that if your number is close, so let's say that the minimum on this property is $95,000, and you've made an offer of $93,500. You may get an email that says, our minimum net bid is X number of dollars. They'll show you what they mean by that, but they'll tell you what their minimum net bid is. And if your buyer wants to come to that point and resubmit the offer at that level, then they'll accept that bid. That's as close to a counter as you get. Otherwise, you just don't get it. So when you're looking at these properties, we've got when the appraisal was done. Now you've got the total rooms, bedroom, and bath, the square footage information, and again, it's all above ground. If you want the below ground and everything else, be sure to look at MLS, because we do have all that there. Are there bedrooms, is there any finished, and all that, that'll show up in the listing. Your list date, how long the listing period was, when the deadline is for bids, etc. All that's here. Now,
Who does their appraisals?
appraisers.
Well, I'm just
That
referring.
sounds like a crazy answer.
Well, no, but the reason I asked that is because the one I bought last year, they said the roof was fine and there was a 2-foot hole in it.
Understand that the appraisers are not inspectors. When you sell a property and we have that form that says importance of home inspection, and it says an appraiser is not an inspector, remember that. That's true straight across the board. An appraiser is not an inspector. Don't depend on them to be that.
So do a lot of,
Sometimes they're appraising them in the winter time too. We've had many where, covered in snow, they list it and then the snow melts and people go, oh my gosh, the whole half of the roof is gone on the backside and nobody saw it. But that's why you do the inspection.
And we report that. When we see something like that, we report it. Then it rarely changes anything. It's just information.
so do a lot of people that are buying these then pay for their own inspector, so at least they have an idea
Sure.
of what they're getting into?
Sure.
Okay.
You betcha.
Okay.
And we'll come to some of that. Okay, now, this category right here, UI, uninsured. My great day in the morning. What does that mean?
Not backed by government stuff? Like government?
You're there.
Is this where we can't use the FHA financing?
It's when you cannot use FHA financing. UI means it's uninsurable. In other words,
Okay.
understand this is an FHA loan that's gone bad, right? So it's become a HUD Owned Property, and now there's been another appraisal done. And it's actually FHA hiring an appraiser to do another FHA appraisal. Okay, so understand, all the appraisals are FHA qualified appraisals. That the lender, if the buyer gets FHA financing, will use that appraisal unless the appraisal is too old. So you have a buyer that make an offer, it's an FHA appraisal on an FHA qualified property. Your buyer will not have to pay for an appraisal. They'll use the appraisal that's already been done. And so this house appraised for $100,000. FHA was the intention. Now, when the FHA appraiser went in, the FHA appraiser said, nah, not going to go. What causes that to happen is that there's either safety, soundness, and structural issues that they've said it won't go FHA, or They've said compliance items. Needs of the house in order to be qualified for an FHA loan exceeding $5,000. So if it would cost more than $5,000 in order for the house to be qualified for FHA financing, it'll be uninsured. Now there's a twist. Next week, we're doing a class in here being presented by Prospect Mortgage. They do a lot of 203K loans. Your regular FHA loan is a 203B. 203B is regular FHA. 203K is FHA and the house needs $10,000 worth of repairs in order to be qualified for the FHA financing. So there's some of these houses like this one that FHA has said, we're not going to insure it no matter what the cost is. It's not going to go FHA. You have to do cash or conventional to get financed.
Is there ever a problem when you've got that appraisal and now you've got to make an offer on the house plus all those repairs that you're into the house more than the appraises for?
Well,
is that
on the 203K?
Yeah.
Are you asking about 203K?
Yeah, if you have to do the 203K.
The 203K will elevate the price. So if you go in and you negotiate a transaction on a 203K, and again, if you don't know about these 203Ks, please come to the class the 4th.
Yes.
Here. Please come. This is not just for this type of property. This is a great avenue of getting home improvements financed into the cost of the home. But what will happen is you buy a house for $100,000. It needs $10,000 worth of repairs. The lender will actually loan $110,000 on the house, because the presumption is that those repairs will increase the value of the property, and so that's part of the 203K process. So this uninsured is an important thing. The twist is, again, it will say UI, uninsured, but then comma 203K. So if you see that, it's not eligible for regular FHA financing. It's eligible for 203K style financing, which is what helps you with the buyer who wants the house but wouldn't have the capital to make the repairs, but they love where it is because it's next door to mom, and this is the way to get it because they don't have enough money for conventional financing or whatever means it is. So this is a great avenue.
That home right there, though, is not eligible for 2. They want absolutely nothing to do with that period, right? Oh, I thought.
That's where it shows it, yeah.
I show that.
Well, I can't see that far, so. Right.
Yes, it is.
Now, we'll get to one of these others. Well, we'll get a couple other examples. I want to show you a couple other items that are here.
Can you show me the 5th Street one and tell me, like, if I have a buyer who's they're like FHA qualified, we've been in there and I just saw all the peeling paint and stuff, I'm thinking, I don't know
So
how
here's
you
the house on 5th Street. So on 5th Street, he's asking about this. So it tells us right here that this home is insured with escrow. So FHA will insure, so it's eligible to go for a regular 203B FHA loan.
Yes.
Then it tells you right here, there's a repair escrow of $3,300.
Okay.
Oh gosh, what's that for?
Yeah.
What is that for? My great day one.
Well, I'm guessing it's for the stuff falling off the outside and the peeling paint on the inside.
Let's see, you know what? The answer is here. Okay, let me go back. I want to go back real quick. Sorry. So if we go here, what does it say right there? It says repair escrow, review, PCR. What is that? What do we have to have filled out on every listing we
Property
take?
disclosure?
Property disclosure. It's actually called a property condition report.
Okay.
Isn't that what? So that's what that is. It's property condition. So this is HUD's property condition report. What do we got? HUD does inspections on these properties before they list them. Did you know that? Now we get a copy of them. We're not allowed to pass them out, but we do have a copy of them, pictures and stuff. So here, you've got a series of things. You've got the lead-based painted addendum, disclosure, repair escrow. So let's see what that says. Conventional. It's thinking.
Oh, it's not funny.
There you go.
It's pulling up on this computer.
Is it pulling
It's
up over
over
here?
here. Yeah, she's not pulling up on that thing.
Let me steal it.
Oh,
you know.
Oh,
my.
Where did Jessica go?
Start closing out.
Hey, that's kind of cool the way that works.
What did that do?
We brought over the presentation window.
We'll fix it, Steve.
Yeah, I was gonna say Steve probably knows what to do.
Layering itself.
Fix it, Steve. Okay, we'll talk about this for a minute while he's fixing it. So the insured with escrow. So what we're going to find on that sheet is they're going to say that
I'm watching it upstairs.
crazy stuff.
Oh,
I don't know. I was just dragging it across. We'll let Russ. So insured with escrow. So that house on Fifth Street says $3,300. So I'm trying to get it. Got it.
let's see.
Okay, that's their estimate. They're saying that it's going to cost $2,000 to paint, and they've got $1,000 worth of plumbing repairs.
No, but inside, the interior has peeling paint too, that's
Yeah.
gonna get called out. So,
Possibly. So here's the other thing about this. Was this house on Fifth Street built before 1978?
yes,
Right? Was it built before then, probably, on Fifth Street?
yes.
Probably.
77.
It's actually fall of 1977, so I just say if it's built before 1978, so 1977 or earlier, then it's going to have lead-based paint. If your buyer is going to get FHA financing, the house is going to go through lead-based paint and abatement test. So what they're going to do is FHA will pay for the cost of the lead-based paint testing. At a cost for the testing about $2,000 to $4,000 for the testing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And they create this 100-page long report. And if the cost to remediate the lead paint exceeds their limit of, I believe it's $5,000, to remediate the lead-based paint situation that exists in the house, they will not allow the house to go FHA financing. It kills the deal. Now here's the wild thing. So your buyer still really wants the house. Still really want the house. So they're going to convert from FHA financing to conventional financing. They get to pay, in order to do that, they have to pay for the cost of the lead-based paint abatement exam and quote for the repair, which usually is somewhere in the vicinity. They'll pay you up to $4,000 for it, but it's usually $1,000 to $1,500 that it costs to have that test and bid for the paint. So if you have a house like Fifth Street that you've got a buyer who's interested in, save yourself some trouble. Ask them, can you come up with another 1.5% and do a 5% down conventional? Their house payment will be way lower to begin with. If they've got sufficient credit scores to do that, do that. This particular house on Fifth Street, you're right, it's got a lot of scraping and peeling paint. Understand that the lead-based paint abatement test will go. There's only one company in the entire state that does this for HUD. They travel around. They may show up in 2 days. They may show up in 6 weeks. We don't know when they're showing up. We know they show up when we get a copy of the report. That's how we know they've been there. They don't call us and tell us this is when we're going to be there. So there's a little bit of loss of control with that, right? So if you've got, again, if you've got a buyer looking at a HUD property that's got a lot of peeling paint, take them conventional. Just take them conventional. Save yourself some pain. It's my strongest advice, yes.
So you said FHA pays for the testing if you go.
They do.
Does that get added on to the portion of the loan?
They pay for that. So FHA will pay for the cost of the testing, for the cost of the bid, for the repair, which actually is surprising how much that costs. And they'll pay for up to $5,000 worth of abatement. If the cost exceeds that, then they just say, hey, it's not eligible for FHA financing. Keep in mind, if at that point in time, if I said, oh, okay, I'll go conventional or any other form of financing than FHA, their position is, you shouldn't have made us spend that money for the lead-based paint abatement. You shouldn't have made us do that, because now you're doing conventional financing, and we wouldn't have had to spend that money. It's your fault we spent the money, you get to pay for it.
And it's about $1,000, did you say?
$1,000 to $1,500 is what we see.
What's your opinion? Do you think Fifth Street would, if I submitted an offer with FHA, do you think that it would pass?
What you know is that if it gets to that point, the buyer can walk away and get their earnest money back. Okay? At that point in time, the buyer can get their earnest money back and walk away. So it's just a delay. So you need to be sure to explain that to the buyer.
Can you have somebody that has done a lot of repairs for FHA maybe come out and give you an idea?
You don't get a choice of who does it. That's the thing.
Lead-based paint,
So
you have
that-
to be
just to
certified.
check it out, just to see if it is good.
You wouldn't even know how to get an estimate for the cost, because I can tell you for sure the costs come in much higher. We had one over in Jenny Lee where they said the door had to be and there was a door and trim around the door that needed to be redone. It was $1,500 for the lead-based paint abatement for the door and the trim around it. And we said, don't do that. We'll get a whole new door for $600. And they said, sorry, you can't do that. If you're going FHA, we have to do this. And so HUD's.
You're saying they wouldn't allow them to replace the door?
No. No. Can't touch it.
Can't do anything.
Oh, that's right.
Can't touch it. So it
Because of
wasn't
the
an
fact that
option.
it has
made-
lead in it?
It made financial sense for a better product. So what happened is HUD came in and did it, created the delay, then right afterward the buyer changed out the door. But HUD spent the money doing it. So it's expensive, but it was their company. Now, if you'd hired a local guy, you might have been able to get that done for $200 or $300. But that's not who you get to use. HUD has a contract, and that's who it's.
Does abatement mean you're not removing the lead, right?
No, it just means you're covering it. They're doing all the appropriate sealing and painting with whatever color paint they happen to have handy, by the way.
Oh, really?
But
Yeah,
what if
no
it's
matching allowed.
what if it's questionable whether it'll go FHA or not? Could you get
You know
some-
whether it will go FHA or not based off this listing. There's no question. What your question is, will the cost for the lead-based paint go over that level?
Okay, that's kind
There's
of
no lead, they don't do any testing unless there's present and peeling paint. If the house is sound and there's no peeling paint, they're not going to test. Okay.
You didn't go over what the escrow repair thing does for you.
Yeah, we're going back. Okay, so, and then here, that's the property condition report. Okay, so these addendums, this addendum tab, well, we're going to go into this again. I'm not going to open that up, just because our computer may get this. Okay? I don't want us to do the same thing again. So be sure to look at the addendums. These are all the forms that are there. So back to the property info. So this repair escrow, $3,300. So is this saying that HUD will pay $3,300 towards the repairs to make this house compliant with FHA?
Yeah, there's money there, right?
Says there's money there, yeah.
set it aside.
Who votes for that? Who's up for that?
Okay, I'm gonna buy
Okay,
it.
you'll buy it. This is what most people would think. What then? Remember, again, this is an appraiser's estimate of cost to have the property be compliant with what FHA needs. Notice this house, by the way, had plumbing. It said plumbing, estimated cost $1,000. So what it means is that when they did a pressure test on the plumbing system in this house, it did not hold pressure. So when your buyer does the inspection on the property, you cannot turn the water on. They do not want a flooded house. If you think through that logically, the plumbing didn't hold water, why would you want to turn the water on? Because if you wake up one morning and you hear water running in your house, what are you going to do? Turn the water on or off? And when's the next time you're going to turn the water on? After it's been fixed, right? This is the same thing. Once it's discovered there's bad plumbing, there's not water going back in those pipes until you know it's fixed. But you can't fix it before closing. So then what do? When you're doing the inspection, you can do a pressure test as well. So just make sure that if you're not using an inspector who can do a pressure test, that they hire a plumber or an HVAC guy, heating guy, come in, they'll plug into a faucet or something somewhere, and they'll pressure test it and try to identify, is this a big leak or is it just a couple little leaks, and they can hear where the air is coming. And they'll be able to give you an idea how major it is through that process.
So in doing that, it helps you find out if it's a major problem or a small problem.
That's the way you find out the degree of that problem. Sometimes your buyer might knock on the door of a neighbor and find out exactly what the problem is. Just being creative, knock on the door of a neighbor. Most of the time, neighbors know about neighbors.
So, and the time frame to fix that is really just a matter of inconvenience to the owner. There's not like a financial, say you got to have it fixed in 5 days.
60 days.
60 days.
60
Okay.
days. So, who's paying for that escrow?
The
buyer. The buyer. The buyer. So, you put in a bid, this house is $110,000, you put in a bid for $105,000, asking HUD to pay 3% of closing costs, they accept the offer. Who's paying the $3,300? You. Buyers. How are they paying for it? What HUD is saying here is that they will allow $3,300 to be added to the loan. They will allow $3,300 above the appraised price of the property, the FHA appraised price of the property, for that repair escrow. What if the buyer does conventional financing?
It's included in the loan, you said?
The $3,300 will be added to the purchase price and allowed to be financed.
Much more you can't do that.
Why not?
Because it goes over the appraised value.
Well, that's an FHA appraisal. Well, you remember, so if somebody gets, is it an FHA appraisal good for conventional financing? No, it's not. So if you've got a buyer, so it says it's appraised for 110, remember that's an FHA appraisal. You've got a buyer going conventional, they'll be getting a new appraisal. And it'll probably appraise. Okay.
Now, if that didn't say repair escrow, if it just said in the addendums that,
there's a repair escrow required to be right there. If it says 0, in order to be qualified for FHA, there's no required repairs. As it stands, it's qualified. There's no compliance items if it says 0. Okay. So here's what happens in this thing. So just say on this house, the example I gave you got $105,000, you got $3,300 in repair escrow. They're going to allow this to go above and beyond the actual agreed upon purchase price of the house to be added to the loan. And then the lender takes that money and sets it aside. And those funds are there for the buyer to use to get the repairs administered after closing. Okay. The buyer provides those funds through either they've got the cash or they put in the escrow.
What if the cost exceeds those?
Out of their pocket. Out of your pocket. Okay. Yeah, have a problem there, huh? Okay.
But that's just for FHA. Go conventional, you just work that out.
Correct. With conventional, all the stuff we're talking about, it all goes away. So that, and guys, in today's environment, conventional financing is far preferable over FHA, right? Because mortgage insurance is outrageous right now, both the upfront and the monthly premium is outrageous, you'll find, if you aren't investigating that with the lender, you've got a buyer, the credit score is qualified for that conventional financing, and they can come up with the other 1.5% of down payment and do a 95% conventional finance loan. They're way above. Okay, so the other area here, so I think we have one of these that's got a what I was looking for, some of these, we might have ones, this is also a repair escrow, insured with escrow. So if it's just I, not IE, it's just I, that means it's insured, and you'll see the repair escrow is 0. It's really important that you explain to the buyers the escrow is their expense. It's their expense. Questions about any of that? A lot of information right there, huh? A lot of information. So, yes.
Does that money get held back into an escrow account and released to the buyer for the repairs, or once they
It's
show?
held by the lender to pay for the repairs.
Held by the lender?
Held by the lender.
Okay, so can they repair, do they, if it's a painting, can they paint themselves? Or do they have to have a painter come in?
Theoretically, they have to have a painter come in, but that's between the buyer and the lender. FHA, I mean, HUD's policy is it's professionally done, again, between the lender and the buyer. You gotta stay out of that as an agent. It's a beautiful thing. Okay. How do you make an offer on one of these things? Is there any, do you have any questions at all about just the general property itself before we move on to just how do you buy one of these puppies? You do have to have an agent. So on each page, when you make an offer, first question, do you use an RE21 to make an offer on a HUD property?
Well, I mean, like, not at first, yeah.
They have their own.
Do you ever use an RE21 for a HUD owned property purchase? Do you fill one out after the fact? No, you don't. Okay, so forget RE21 on a HUD offer. What is one of the important things that's in an RE21 offer towards the back of the form that talks about agency? Remember we got our little boxes, A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D? So on a HUD offer, because the HUD offer forms, remember these HUD offer forms are nationwide forms. Are agency laws the same in all 50 states? How could HUD possibly create a document to cover all the nuances that are different from one state to the other? They really can't. So remember, you've got to do an RE41. That's our RE41 form. That is our state disclosure form, the agency disclosure form, and it looks just like what you see on that page 6 of our offer. It's page 6, where it has the ABCD, ABCD. You do have to fill that form out for HUD offers. And we take you through that. It shows up later. But keep that in mind. We've always got to have that agency disclosure form because that's required by state statute, right? Okay. So you want to submit an offer. First thing, your broker has to have what's called an NAID number. If you work with this real estate firm, we've got one. If you don't, you need to find out if your broker has an NAID number. If they do not have an NAID number, it takes about 6 weeks to get one. So you should say, would you please get me one? So what I did was just click that button that said, I'd like to submit an offer. And so it brings up this great little form, this great little sheet, and it comes in here and says, okay, let's get started. So I have a drop-down menu, and it asks me what kind of NAID type is it. So it's a selling broker. And then it wants your NAID number, which okay, so that's that's our NAID number for our office.
Read it out for us.
That's WINRLT 6459. Right?
RLT?
RLT.
Got your password up here, I just don't have that written down.
I think that's what it is.
6459? 645?
6459.
That stuff's on the internet, right?
So, then you gotta put in your license number. So you have to input your license number because when you get all this stuff, it matches it up. When it come down here, you gotta put in those crazy numbers. That's what my coach did. They'll come back and tell you.
We have to put a space in something like
I wasn't sure, but I did, and okay. So guys, this is taking us to the form. So again, you yourself, you notice it asks for my license number. So when you have an NAID number, if you don't have your license number in the system, you yourself have to be authorized under the NAID number, and you just have to register to do that. So in here, this, believe it or not, this form right here is all there is to doing a bid. This form is all there is. So we come across to here and we say, okay, the agreed upon purchase price of the property is, let's say that your buyer wants to offer $80,000. And what kind of financing are they going to get, guys? What should we put here?
Okay.
See what it has? Can you read that? 203B? 203B with a repair escrow. That's what we have on this house, right? So we check that box. Seller will pay reasonable and customary costs, but not more than the actual cost. No more than the paid price. HUD will pay up to 3% of the purchase price towards closing costs. HUD will pay 3% of the purchase price towards closing costs. You can't put in 3% though. You got to do the math. So we're going to say $2,400. Look what this magical system does. It comes right up right away and tells you how much you're going to get paid and how much the listing agent's going to get paid. And then it comes down right here and says net due to seller. Did you hear me say something about that number a little while ago? You make an offer and the offer's too low, but it's close, and you get this email back from BLB. I think it's Josh, MMREM, sorry, Jason, MMREM. And Jason says, thanks for the bid. It was pretty close, but our minimum net is $74,253.66. Seriously. 66, seriously. That's what you'll see. And that number is the number HUD gave to MMREM as the minimum acceptable bid. That's the number they're talking about. The number right here, it says 72.8. Needs to be whatever I just said. So you got to work backwards to get to that number if the buyer's willing to raise that, right? And you got to meet that number, then you submit an offer, meets that minimum offer, there you go.
However, in other words, if they're trying to lowball it and stuff, just,
if they try to lowball, you'll get nothing back. So if it's listed for 100 and you shoot in an offer for 80, you won't hear anything. Nothing. Zip-a-rino. The only way you'll hear anything is if it was close or you got it. Otherwise, you won't hear anything. And neither will we, so that you know that. We have no idea how many offers are tendered. All we know is when an offer is accepted. It's common for people to call us and say, hey, what's going on over there at Nixon? You know if there's any other offers? Most of the time we don't. Most of the time. So I just always tell you, as a rule, you just tell your buyer to make their highest and best offer and hope it works. It's a true blind auction. Okay.
Mike, can we go back to that NAID? I'm sitting here thinking that that has to go through you, but are you saying that every one of us can get our own NAID?
No, okay, I'm sorry, I need to explain that. The NAID number, the broker is registered for the office and all the agents in the office to be authorized to place bids. But each agent has to go in to register as an agent. That's how the license number, I put my license number in there. So what it's doing is matching the NAID number, and under that NAID number, all these license numbers are authorized to bid. So you have to go in and do that individually, which you do on that first page. It gives you a place to become a registered bidder, and that's how you do that. Okay.
You have to re-register every once in a while? Or
No. Once you're in, you're in. Unless you change brokers. Okay, so remember earlier when I was telling you guys that if you have a property that it just says owner occupants, it doesn't say investors yet, and you've got an investor who's going to place a bid, that button right there will not be highlighted. You won't see it, you won't be able to click on it, you won't be able to push it, you're just shut down. So, click it, whichever one it is you want. So you've got an investor. This is the box that you were talking about set up. You may hold it as a backup, or you may not. Okay. So you check whichever box. So we'll say, nah, don't think so. So now this is where you fill out the information. You know, if you're buying it, if it was an entity or an individual, whatever you got, then you fill that in and you put in the information. Now, names. They require submission of an ID. Have your names here match the names exactly as what you have on the ID. So if you're using an Idaho driver's license, it has Jerry Michael Hicks. And you fill in Jerry Michael Hicks. Now, I don't know if MMREM will kick one of these things because the names don't identically match. BLB did. And they make the contracts be completely redone over it. It's a real pain. So my suggestion, don't risk it. Just ask them what form of ID are you going to use? And what's the name on it? Make sure that you got it exactly as it is on the ID. And so if you've got it first or second, they're up, off you go. The system automatically knows when I register based off of that, it knows who I am.
Then,
I'm sorry.
When you're filling that out on your ID, for example, your Idaho driver's license, if their address doesn't match, is that a problem too?
No, that's not. Okay, I'm not going to hit the continue button here. Now the continue button would take me to another page and have me verify some information. I guess I can do that. It's not hard.
One thing I was just going to say, if you go up to the top, they do ask for your social security numbers, so you will need to make sure you get your buyer's social security numbers from them to place the bid. You don't have to use it as a form of ID when you're submitting your paperwork, but they will need that for the eligible.
So where does it say what form of ID to use? So if I'm selling somebody and I say to my buyer, what form of ID are you going to use? Your driver's license, or where does it say?
They don't care what it is.
Well, they don't care what it is.
Just the names. I wouldn't use the Sam's Club card.
Yeah, I think I think you do need to use like a registered,
Driver's license is hands down the best. Hands down. And I would recommend to you just use a driver's license.
But there's no place here that says what form I use.
No.
Okay.
No. But I'm just telling you, use a driver's license. It's the best. It has the least chances of having questions. So you fill out all the information. It tells you it's all got to be there. You don't have to do the email, but all the other fields pretty much have to be completed. Okay. When you submit your offer, it's going to come back with a page, and it's going to give you a confirmation number for your bid, a bid confirmation number. Either print that page or write down the confirmation number. You're going to need it later on. It doesn't track through, and if you don't have that number, you're going to have trouble filling out the contract, and we're going to go to the contract. Now, a couple of basic practices. Purchase price up to $50,000, earnest money is $500, over $50,000, $1,000. That's the earnest money, period. You can submit, the beautiful thing about this is that you don't have to sit down and fill out the entire contract at the time you're submitting a bid. But it's a bad spot to be in to get the bid accepted. You don't even have an earnest money check, and now you've got to complete the contract, and the buyer yawns at you when you said, you got the bid. Can we meet tomorrow and put all the paperwork together? Change my money. And you don't even have an earnest money check. So when you're going to do this, have the earnest money check. And the earnest money check needs to be made out to
the name of the title company that you're going to choose, which here now we're allowed to choose your own, so Mountain West Title, and then the word or. You have to have it made out to both parties, the title company, and then the word or, and then your buyer's names exactly as they're spelled on your driver's license and as they are on your contract that you submit.
Can they use a personal check?
They cannot. It has to be a cashier's check.
It has to be some form of cashier's check, money order.
And it has to be with the word or between.
Why would we want that? Why do they want that? Because remember, when are you getting the check? It's a cashier's check, right? When are you getting that check? Before you do this. Before you do this. Don't get yourself caught in the spot of doing it afterward. It's a bummer. Because when you submit this offer, you're saying you have the money. That's like you're doing RE21 and you check the box that says you got a personal check and you didn't. And the offer gets accepted and the buyer doesn't come in with the money. Guess who does come in with the money? You as the agent. Because you said you got the money. So when you submit this offer, you're saying you got the money. What happens if you don't get the bid? Your buyer does not get the offer. You give the check back to them. The check says Mountain West Title or Sam and Susie Jones. So then they can go and redeposit their money. So that's the reasoning that you do that. Make sense? Okay, so in this offer, this property is listed for how much?
82.
What if, while I was sitting out in front of this house, I was the fourth one in line waiting to see this house? There's a line of people going in. We had this happen the other day on a property. There was a line of agents going in. A line. They were just stacked up to see this house. And everybody's saying, oh, Ryan's buyer got the house. There was a bunch of offers on this house.
Yeah, I was in that line.
So there's a line of people. And the buyers, and so that's what's happening here. And the buyer says, I'm going to offer, I really want this house, man. It's just an unbelievable steal. I'm going to offer $90,000 on the house. Now, in this case, this house has an appraisal of $90,000. This house does. But let's say the appraisal was $82,800. That's the appraisal, $82,800. And your buyer's getting FHA financing. And they bid $90,000. And they got the bid. Tracking with me? Mm-hmm. So they just bid $7,200 above the appraised value of the house. Where are they going to come up with the $7,200? Where does that come from?
Their bank pocket. Buyers out of their pocket.
Out of the pocket. They better have the money. Or just go conventional and hope it appraises for $90,000. Right? So remember, if you're sticking with the FHA financing, you're going to bid more than the appraised value of the property. You have to remember that. Now in this case, this one, if we look at the first page, I'm going to get out of this now. Anything else I should cover on this one? Don, anything else I should cover on that one?
No.
Okay, what's that? So I'm going to go back here to the in the home.
Now, maybe I missed it. That list price, that's their appraised price?
So, in this,
Well, Mike, the 3% of closing, is that based on if it's above appraisal price also?
3% appraised.
Yeah, so if they went above appraisal, it's only 3% of what it was appraised.
Right. So, okay, so on this property, just keep in mind, again, so I'm gonna go back to this property because this house has that down arrow. It's had a price adjustment, right? So it appraised for what? Where's the appraised value here? It went away. They used to have that here. The original listing price on this house was $90,000. So that you know in MLS, if you go back and you look at any HUD listing, the original listing price was the HUD FHA appraised value. So now in this case, the buyer offered $86,000, which is above the $82,800. They're still below the $90,000 appraised value. They're still okay. No out of pocket for that increased value.
Now, that will show what the price is for, right? Will it, or?
Well, this sheet used to. I don't know if they changed that, honestly.
Go to 13th Street, our newest listing, and see if, when they first come out, if it's there, and then.
Yeah. It is, when they do a reduction.
Yeah, that's next. I'm wondering if the new one. I think MMREM, well, it says the date it was appraised, but I think MMREM got rid of the.
So you know, the original listing price is the FHA appraised price, okay? The original listing price is the FHA price. Okay. In Idaho, so here's the contract sales package. So you submitted the offer, you got the offer, now you've got to fill out your contract. This thing's going to do this again.
Should I see Jessica next?
Let me see if
She's listening, so.
okay. Where was I? Lost track of myself. Oh, back on the MMREM page. So you didn't do the contract at the time that you submitted the initial offer. You got the offer, and you get that beautiful email that says, "You got the offer. Congratulations." Inside that email, they will give you a link that will take you to the contract page. Somehow or another, you delete the email, can't find your link, you can call us, we'll send you one. Or, I hear it coming.
Yeah.
You can hit the link, it'll take you, now you're going to complete the contract. Remember, write down that confirmation number. Write down your confirmation number. There's a moment when you lose that thing. So, probably on that screen.
Instead of closing it, just minimize it when you pull the next one and go, oh my God, what we're talking about.
I'm just going to. Sounds good. For some reason, this works different on this computer than mine. Okay. The good thing about the process is that you get fairly specific notes. And these will be coming from MMREM. And they give you pretty good information. Most of the time, we're copied on the emails that you get. So we know what's going on. Right after you get an offer, you're going to get a call from, I say us, you're going to get a call from Nicole, who's in the process of updating her video. So you'll get a video from Nicole and perhaps a phone call. So you're going to get a form that looks like this. It has all these blanks. Now, if we go down through all the pages of this offer, there's lots of pages. Lots of pages. If you fill out the first page correctly, it auto-populates every field in your contract. Every field.
There's your bid confirmation.
So right here, that's where that big confirmation number comes in. So when you fill this form out, the entire contract auto-populates, and all you have to do is print it. Isn't that cool?
Yes.
I mean, I
Put it
wish
in color, it'll even highlight where everybody signs.
it's pretty.
Make sure you got a lot of paper.
It's pretty-
21 pages.
21. So you're going along, and you think, types, title style, what is that? What do they want? What does that mean? What does that mean? Anybody know what that means?
Like warranty deed, you mean, or?
Title style? What does it say? That's the great thing. Hover over the question mark. Hover over the question mark. Just want to answer it. Is it a single person? Is it a husband and wife? Is it him buying his sole and separate property? What is it? So it's just telling you the type of title. So again, if you have a question, you aren't sure what they want, just hover over this. So there is information you need, that broker employer identification number. The broker of your office will have that, or the keeper for your office, remember they've got that number if you don't already have it. It'll be an 82 something. So you just go through and you fill out, you just fill out the form. You've got your case number, the list price of the property was, your property address, you just fill everything out. Just fill out every box. Now make sure when you do these names that you match identically with what's on your initial bid. If you submitted it as Jerry Michael Hicks, now put it here as Jerry Michael Hicks. They'll kick it if you don't. So just take your time to do those things. But it's really pretty neat the way this all works. It goes through, you fill out the information on this front page. There's nothing hard about any of the fields. It's very straightforward. If you're confused or you aren't sure what it is, just hover over the question mark. You should, that sheet that you submitted your bid, you'll get it. You got that confirmation, that email confirmation. It has the information on it. But when I do that form, I print out that form. I just print it out. I want to have it just in case something goes wrong. But the other reason I want it is so that when I'm sitting in here and I'm trying to remember, okay, what did I put on there before? Is this, you got an annual fill in? Then it helps you remember the numbers that you had.
In other words, when you make the bid.
When you make the bid,
And then you
that
click
first
through
sheet,
the whole
the
thing.
sheet, the sheet that I was
Print it
just
off.
doing. Right.
Okay.
And then I just print that off.
And you have it.
When I got
This one, this one.
Yeah, I just keep that along with my earnest money check that I collected from the buyer before I submitted the bid. Yes, now.
It used to be when you were submitting the bid and you filled out the form, they had a tab where you could fill to the contract and it transferred all that information in. Don't do that
They
anymore.
only do it at the time that you're making the offer. Is that right, Nicole?
I'm not exactly sure what you mean. On this, it's just that there's a little tab at the bottom that says print. You just fill out the first page and hit print, and it'll automatically take all this information and go through the
It
21
used to be
pages.
when you hit the submit button, then you could go to the contract. Whatever was on that page was put into the contract at that time.
So here's what Don is saying. So the first page that we did,
The HUD Home Store.
the HUD Home Store page, we're submitting our offer. Right after that, it will give you the option to complete the contracts. You can do it at that time. If you got the buyer in front of you and they're about to jump on an airplane to fly off somewhere, HUD, MMREM will not accept electronic signatures. Let me say that again. They will not accept electronic signatures. And when you get the acceptance, you have 48 hours for them to receive the contracts. So if you have a buyer who just flew to Phoenix, you got to get the contracts to them, have them sign everything, and overnight it back to get here within 24 hours for you to get it out, and another 24 hours to get it into MMREM so that you don't lose your bid. Okay? So if you happen to be with your buyer, and you're saying, well, just in case, you go ahead and fill out that extra little bit of information. It'll take 10 minutes to fill it out and sign all the forms, get it done before they leave, because it's required to be original ink.
Blue.
Blue, original. Yeah. Not black, not red, blue. They're particular. So this just takes you through the offer, and once you get down here to the bottom, it said make sure you're accurate, and it'll auto-populate the rest of the form printed out. Now, Nicole has a little piece of paper that a great thing MMREM is doing is that they are allowing, they will review your contract before you actually submit it. So you could actually complete the contract, get all your signatures and stuff, and quick email it to Jason and say, hey, is this all good? And he'll review it and say, yes, it's good, or you need to do this, that, or the other. That keeps your contract from being rejected and sent back and starting over again and tracking it back down for signatures or wherever you need. So it's a great, that's a great thing to do. We will do the same for you if you want that. So, but Nicole's got a little sheet of paper she'll show you.
Yep.
Okay. So, kind of an important thing. So earnest money. You will receive some specific instructions on how to handle the earnest money. It's different than your typical earnest money. You will forget between now and then what it is that you do with that earnest money. That's why Nicole calls you, knowing that you also won't read your email. Nicole's going to call you. Because, you know, you get these emails, and they're like this long, and you wonder what it says. There's so many words to read. What does it really say? And what attorney wrote that? So Nicole's going to call you and say, where's your earnest money check?
I need it.
And she's going to say, get in your car and bring it over here now. Then we log it in, and we take it to the title. It's a required trail. There's a required trail where that earnest money goes. But she'll tell you where it is, what it is, and remind you of those steps and crucial things. Okay.
What is your title in all of this?
LLB, the local listing. Right there. Okay. Closing costs. We mentioned the 3% closing costs. Idaho, you get to select your title company. Any of the 5 title companies. All 5 of our local title companies are registered. Each title company has a number, a registration number. We have those numbers. Or you can call the title company and ask them what's your number. For the privilege of being able to choose our title company, we get to comply with what is true in most states, but not necessarily locally here. When you write up a regular contract here, who pays for the owner title insurance policy? Normally, who pays for that? Seller does. If you do a Fannie Mae property, who pays for the title insurance? Fannie Mae. Well, guess what? In HUD, that is not true. The majority of states in the country, the buyer pays for all title insurance policies. The owner's policy, as well as the lender's policy. Extended policies, whatever they are, the buyer customarily pays for those in most states across the country. So that's true for HUD here. So when you're talking to your buyer about closing costs, the buyer pays the owner's title policy. You do not want the buyer surprised by this. You know how when you look at your settlement statements now, where you get a good faith from the lender, how it shows the owner's policy is charged to the buyer, and you say, I wish you wouldn't do that. It's because all these systems are written up for what's national, what happens across the country. The fact that we're different, we have to account for manually. But with these HUD properties, they pay for the owner's policy, and they pay for 100% of the title company closing fee. Title company closing fee is not split equally between buyer and seller. The only closing fee that the title company pays is if there's any recording fee on their side and the commissions. Other than that, HUD doesn't really have any expenses. This is a very, very important thing. So I'm going to cover procedurally a couple of really important things that you cover with buyers. So cost is the one, right? So they just need to know you pay for all title coverages and you pay for 100% of the title company closing fee. How do you calculate the title company closing fee? Who knows? Volunteers? Come on. Three,
Yeah, thousands times 3 plus 50.
that's right. $3 per thousand plus $50. So if a house is 100,000, 3 times 100 plus $50. The title company closing fee is $350. That's how you calculate that. So normally, and on most good faith estimates from the lender, in that case, they would say $175. Don't have your buyer come to closing surprised by the $350. Understand that on a HUD property, 3% usually will not cover the closing costs. Okay. HUD does pay their share of property taxes, so the property taxes are prorated. They do that. Is anything there?
Nope.
Okay. The next thing is inspections. So can you do an inspection on a HUD owned property? Yes, you can. When you go look at a HUD property, are the utilities on? They're not. If you ever walk into a HUD property and the utilities are on and it's listed, please call us. Because there's a problem. It should not be on. Everything is on. Remember, you buy HUD properties as is. And boy, this is simple. I mean, it is so simple. They're buying the property as is. HUD will not make any repairs. So we're going through one right now where an inspection was done, was completed. For whatever reason, the city did not turn off the utility services. The appraiser goes into the house, turns the water back on, that was off, forgets to turn it off when they leave, for us to get a call during one of our routine inspections that guess what, there's water. It's kind of a bummer. And of course, the first thing everybody wants to do is run get fans, go do something, but we can't do anything. It's not our property. And HUD's policy is hands-off. Just, we'll do our thing, and if everybody's still happy, they can still buy it, and if they don't, oh well, that's the way it goes. Okay. So remember, the inspection, the buyer is welcome to do an inspection, and they can reject the property because of the inspection. They can walk away from the inspection.
Only an owner-occupant.
Yeah. An owner-occupant, in the contracts, it says that it is up to HUD/MMREM whether they would refund the earnest money to an owner-occupant. It's option. It's not a requirement. It doesn't say they will. It says they may, at their option, do that. Never seen them not do it, okay? You can reasonably, reliably tell your folks that if they don't like the inspection, that they should get their earnest money back. Don't tell them they will, because you don't want to be writing the check yourself, right? Let them know it is up to the management company in HUD that normally, yes, they do get that back. Investors, what about them? No. If an investor walks away for any reason, they're going to lose their earnest money. I've never seen an investor get earnest money back. Okay, so it's gone. So you're going through the inspection. So keep in mind again that if in your disclosures, the property condition report, and in that escrow estimate, it says plumbing, any number. If it's $250, it's probably something really minor. If it's $1,000, it's going to be enough to get your attention, kind of thing. But you cannot turn the water on. You'll be able to turn the power on. If the house has gas, you'll be able to turn the gas on. But you will not be able to turn the water on. So again, the pressure test is the answer. So the buyer goes through the inspection. It's got a bunch of cadet heaters that were part of the recall. Buyer says, I want HUD to replace those. No, they won't. So this is an early thing when you're going through the property and your buyer's exhibiting an interest in the property. It's really important they understand it's a true as is, truly as is. No fixes. Nothing can happen in that house prior to closing. Nothing. It's simple. I mean, in some ways it sounds harsh, doesn't it? But isn't it easy isn't it great just being able to tell your buyer, absolutely, this is the way it is. So when you do the inspection, you're going to do an inspection, and then you decide whether you want it or not. You're doing the inspection to decide whether you want the property or not. So I would tell you that our fail rate on HUD properties from the time they go together to they close, I would tell you 25 to 30% of them fail, and the property comes back on the market. So I'm saying this back to do you want to hold this as a backup offer, yes or no? If your buyer really has an interest in the property, what's it hurt? That this inspection, this is the area that usually causes it to come undone, and it's because the agent hasn't prepared the buyer for the idea that you can't do anything, that it's as is. Questions about that at all? None? None?
So if you make an offer or a bid and you don't hear anything in 24, you're going to assume you didn't get it, you could look at another one and go make an offer on it.
Right.
Because you're safe.
Right, so long as. So let's use, to that question. If you want to, there it is. Hard to find it. So.
Just click the Internet Explorer, don't click Google Chrome, Internet Explorer.
Okay. So this one, the bid opening date is June 2nd on this property, right? So your buyers submit a bid, whatever they offer, and they do it today. And tomorrow, they're driving down the street, they're so excited, they're going to walk around the property, check it out, and somebody pulls up and they go in the house, agent's showing the house. And the people stay in the house, and they stay in the house, and they stay in the house. Now your people, they go out, and they sit in the car, then people come out of the house, and they walk all the way around the yard again, they're really giving it a good look, and then they walk back in the house again. And your buyer's tapping, they're thinking, oh gosh, I offered $68,000 on this house. It looks like these people are really interested. I wonder if they're going to make an offer. I wonder if I should change my offer. I wonder if I should offer more. Can I change my offer? Can I change my offer?
Before the bid deadline.
Before the bid deadline? Yeah. Can I change it before the bid deadline?
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
you do.
Yeah, you can. Remember, this is a seller. The seller's like every other seller. They want as much money as they can get, right? So, how do you do that? Well, what would you do? Of course, you can call us and we'll guide you. So always know, you can call us, we'll guide you. But where are the forms? Where did we start today? I did a Google search for MMREM. Went to the website, went over to forms. One of those forms is bid change. And you can change your bid and update your bid. So you can do that. But if you wanted to cancel your bid before it was accepted, can you do that? Same way. You can do all of those things. So again, a lot of times even just looking, if you'll take a minute, go there and look at the names of those forms, it'll let you know what you can and should do, or can have the options.
So 5 of us have buyers that are interested in this. All 5 of our buyers put in an offer with either, if it's under $50,000, it's a $500 earnest money. If it's over $50,000, it's a $1,000 earnest money. So if there are 5 investors that offer that, the one gets rewarded, the 4 don't get their earnest money back?
Yes. Remember, when is earnest money deposited?
Because you hold the earnest money.
Well, you're holding the earnest money until it's accepted. So keep in mind, okay, so when you write up the offer, you've got, your broker actually is going to have it. So what will happen is you're going to write up the offer. So you write up the offer, you've got the earnest money check, you've got your basic paperwork, you've got your your agency disclosure brochure, you got all the stuff that's used for your office. You're going to turn it into the office. The office has to log the earnest money too. If you don't get the offer, you're just going to go back and collect it and give the check back to your buyer. If you did, we're going to say, go get your earnest money check and bring it to me, because we have to take the time. And that's where it gets to stay. Okay? Make sense? Okay. Escrow, again. The escrow. Insured with escrow. You guys, you have that? You got it? You understand the buyer provides the funds for the escrow, right? Either through they got it in their wallet or bank account, or they're going to increase the loan. And FHA has already said, HUD has already said, we'll allow that to be financed above and beyond the appraised value of the house. And the forecast to be done within 60 days after closing. Right? And who holds the money? Who holds it?
Title company?
Who holds the that one case of 3,300? Who's holding the money?
Title company.
The lender. The lender's holding the money. So that's why the question came up: can the buyer do the work? It's between the buyer and the lender. There's that definition there. Stay out there. You just need to say you need to talk to the lender and see what their rules are. Lender drives that. Okay. Nicole, what other things do we need to know?
Just, I mean, the handout that I provided has just some information. You know, once you guys are awarded the bid and you've got your 48 hours to complete your contract, give me the earnest money check. A copy of the earnest money check goes with the contract. The RE41, you know, it used to be that HUD or that the MMREM or BLB used to require a copy of that agency disclosure, the RE41, to be in your contract. It's no longer on the checklist. I would just make it standard practice. You have to have it for your broker, you know, in your file so it's compliant. So you might as well, you know, submit that RE41 with your contract page to MMREM, do your buyer's rep, your agency for your office. They don't need that, but the RE41 they do. And like I said, your driver's license, make sure you get copies of driver's licenses. Those have to go in. And that checklist, on the second page of the contract, there's a wonderful checklist. If you just go through and make sure you check everything off, you'll be good. And then use Jason, you know, have him review it before you're overnighting it. Since you have 48 hours, you know, take advantage of that. Once you do get that email that says the contract's been ratified, that's when you're allowed to get the utilities activated if your buyers are going to do an inspection. So if they're going to do an inspection, you need to think, okay, you know, how do I get the utilities activated? What can be activated? And that's where this utility activation sheet comes in handy. It has the link to Prescient, who's the FSM, the field service management company that handles all the properties. That's actually a link that you can go to and fill the form in, the dates that you're choosing to have your inspection. If it's between the days of October 1st and March 31st, there are rewinterization fees that your buyer has to pay. So this will also let you pay by credit card, your buyer's credit card, pay those fees. They can only be on for 72 hours, cannot be on over a weekend, cannot be on over a holiday. So what I tell everybody is plan on having them activated on a Tuesday, a Wednesday, and a Thursday. And that gives you time to have the buyers call in on Monday, for you to run out on Tuesday during the day to have the electricity turned on, have the gas turned on, to have the water turned on if they allow it. And I would really highly suggest you guys, I know you are very busy, but it's important that you try and be there if you can when they're activating these utilities. Because if I've gone to one of these before and somebody's left the disposal on because they were flipping switches, oh, it doesn't work. Well, electricity popped on, lights came on, disposal came on. I mean, things were going and you would not know. And so what I always tell the buyers is when you're calling to activate utilities, give them your agent's cell phone number and say, I need you to call this number 15 minutes before you're heading out. And I know it's a disruptive for you, but that way, an assistant or anybody, you can say, hey, you know, we need to run out to the house at this time, make sure the electricity's off, everything's okay. And then, you know, make sure the hot water tank is unplugged if you're not going to be able to turn water on because you don't want the hot water tank burning up. So it's just really important. And you do have to stay during your inspection. So I always say set your inspector for Wednesday. That's right in the middle. You make sure all your utilities are on. If you're going to have an appraisal, have your lender make sure that the appraiser's out there at the same time. Because once you have your 72 hours, they're off. They don't get to turn them back on again. It's very important too that you ensure, your buyers ensure that the utilities are turned off. And I would just make a double check that they were turned off. And in the situation of the house that we had, the city, for whatever reason, decided it's important enough for you to be there when the water gets turned on at the street, but they don't care that, you know, there's anybody there to turn them off at the street, and they never send anybody. And that's where we had the flooding issue. So I would just, it's just very important that you just make sure that, you know, they're on, you know, that everything's okay in the house, nothing's flooding, nothing's on that's not supposed to be, and that they're off after those 3 days.
It's a little inconvenient, you know, where you've got the utilities are going to be turned on, and that you have to go there to do that. HUD is very specific. Consumers, buyers are not to be in a property on a company. That the agent that they're working with is to be on property whenever they're on property. So when utilities are turned on, if you don't go there and the property is subsequently damaged because you weren't there when those utilities were turned on, I don't know what the potential recourse is. I know the minimum of recourse is that they would withdraw your right to sell HUD Owned Property. So it could be a challenge to your ability to sell those properties in the future, that you just couldn't submit bids or offers for them. Beyond that, I don't know what liability there would be, but they're very clear. When there's an inspection, you have to be there, not leave the consumer there. So it can be you. If you've got assistance, you can have your assistant. Somebody representing you must be there with the buyer.
With the appraisal also, with the appraiser?
The appraiser is not required, but that is an important point. The lender needs to be aware of when the utilities are on, so that somebody tells the appraiser they're on from Tuesday to Thursday. You have to go inside that window. And we did have one here a few months ago where the appraiser didn't make it. For whatever reason, the appraiser didn't make it. And the appraiser said, we've got to have the utilities turned back. And BLB said, no. Sorry. No. We're not turning them back on. The lender worked it out somehow, but the appraisers are required to make sure that the services are active in the property to the extent that they have knowledge. So make sure that you're doing those things. Again, Nicole, I'm not going to take any credit for this, she will walk you through this process, and she'll send you emails. If you get something from her, you should really pay attention to it. She is trying to help you. She's trying to help you, thus help your buyer, to make you look like a star through this project, and to make it easy for you to save the trauma. So do rely on her. Let her help you through that process.
Isn't true they have 15 days. You have up to 15 days to do your inspection. So don't, like the day you get the ratified contract, don't just go, oh gosh, like, no, go think, talk about it. Talk about schedules. Talk to the lender about schedules. You know, you could make it for 2 weeks from now, that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but just make sure that when you have them approved, those days are going to be the days that are going to be approved. They're going to give you sign off. They're going to sign the form and say, okay, these are your days. So just, you know, be aware.
Yeah, and that is true. You've got 15 days from the date the contract is calendar days, from the date the contract is ratified. So in the process, once, you know, as you got the bid, you complete the contract, it goes to MR, you know, for review, and then they'll ratify the contract. You'll get an email that says, okay, your contract is ratified. That means it's done. That's kind of like with a relocation company or anywhere else. That means they've signed it, they've accepted everything, now you're proceeding. You have those 15 days. So,
those 15 days are to do the inspection, is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And just to let you know, now there are no keys that change hands on HUD homes. So the keys that are used in the key boxes, that's a general key for HUDs and for the field service management company. So what happens is, and make sure your buyers know this, that they can have a locksmith or they can change out doorknobs, but they can't go into the home until we know that it's funded and recorded. So what happens is we'll get a call, you'll get a call from the title company saying, yay, it's done. I'll call you. One of us will call you and say, hey, we just got the call. I'm sure you did too. What does your buyer want to do? We're going to head over there now. We're going to take all of our signs out of the window. We're going to take all the padlocks off garage doors and sheds. We're going to take our key box with the key on it in it, and we're going to take the sign. So where, you want us to leave the back door open? Do you want us to leave the front door unlocked? Because we're just gonna get our stuff and go. And then it's up to the buyers then to either reach key or to change out doorknobs, bring a doorknob with them, and they can just swap it out and then work on the rest of them later. But yeah, no keys for those houses.
And we do it on the day to close, we do that. We did have one the other day, they closed. The agent was out of town, the buyer was out of town. But it was Thursday, we ran and got our stuff, and that house sat open for nearly a week, unlocked. Nobody told us anything, it was like 4 days later when we found out we've been leaving messages, but our guidance, so that you know, we're told on the day of closing, you go get the stuff. So we do, we get our stuff. Again, this is stuff we tell you, and we'll remind you of it, but.
So just another thing, will they leave the house locked or unlocked?
You have to keep in mind, you don't have a key.
Right.
If we lock it, you gotta break in.
Yeah.
So if you tell us to lock
Usually
it,
you'll
we'll lock
keep it
it.
unlocked then, right?
We'll coordinate with you. We'll usually say, what would you like us to do? Or, sometimes we even have a chance where we'll say, he'll say, we're not gonna be out there till 4. If we have time, I mean, if it works with our schedules, we can wait until he's gonna be there and meet him there if, there's concern. But normally it's just, we just say, what door do you want left unlocked? What would you like us
It
to
works
do?
pretty smooth, it's just
Yeah.
when sometimes we get in that mode.
I didn't, but I will.
Okay, what else? Roy?
I had a lady ask me the other day, I wasn't 100% sure, what happens if you have 2 owner-occupant bids that are the exact same amount?
They have an electronic process and they pick.
They just pick one of the 2 and the other one's just allowed.
Unless they said they let their bids down for backup. So, I think those are the biggest highlights to the process. Again, it's a little bit different process. We do our best to walk you through it. It's actually a pretty friendly process. You'll find there's actually less stress involved because you don't have that second negotiation going on. It's pretty defined, and tells you what to do. If you have any questions, you just ask us, and we'll walk you through it. Because we want you to want to go back out and sell another one again sometime. Any other questions at all that you can think of?
Mike, maybe could you explain to me a little bit about how this differs from those home path houses? What's really the difference between the Fannie Mae ones and then doing the HUD?
Completely different agencies.
Just different.
They're
completely
just,
different agencies.
yeah, just completely different. The Fannie Mae, Freddie Macs, all those, that's coming from the conventional side.
Okay, so it's the
finance.
conventional side.
FHA is HUD Owned Properties, and VA is GA.
Okay.
So
that's the difference,
yeah,
FHA versus conventional. Okay.
it is. Well, good. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, he didn't. We could find some with different agents. Yeah, you could go with buyer and choice, just that one that's listed in our office. Right, so if there's one that's with Century 21. Yeah.
They'll cut everything out.
Yeah.
I think it was about the whole
Oh,
no. It's all right.